Welcome to More Than a Game, a podcast dedicated to the Premier League, the A-League and more. Today on the show, the Woo invested a lot of banter into the Battle of the Bridge, and the last thing we wanted was GameStop. Warren Ball has the Roar flying to the moon. Are Chelsea stonks rising? And should we stop shorting Sheffield? I'm Colby, and I'm joined today on the pod by Damo and Jesse. Boys, big week of football, a triple header of the A-League yesterday, Premier League overnight, then double header today. How are you both feeling? Damo?
I feel like there's been so much football this week that I was trying to rack my brain about what to talk about today, and there was just so many games that happened.
Yeah, I'm struggling big time to keep on top of it all. I know that's kind of like what the aim of the pod is to do, but holy shit, like we've just been bombarded with football coming out of
We're just that gif. We're just that gif of the kit flying backwards. That's basically us permanently, isn't it? Yeah, it's been overwhelming, but I mean, I guess you just have to make the best of it and be a professional.
Oh, that's it. Yeah, that's it. We're the standard of professionalism on this podcast, while not high, I think we're probably up there with Fox Sports now. I mean, they've come down to meet us. More on that later, though. Big show coming up today. The Battle of the Bridge, as we said, is pretty much the most exciting 0-0 derby we've seen. Plus, the Roar and the Mariners are turning back the clock atop the A-League ladder. We'll update you on United's title challenge, Sheffield's survival hopes, and which of Liverpool's outfield players are going to play centre-back next week. We've got listener questions, More Than a Game trivia, plus a little later on we'll be joined by George for a bit of Chelsea Corner. Boys, but first of all, let's kick off with our moments of the week. Jesse?
I think for me, I'd have to say the Raw's performance was probably one of my moments of the week. Just looking across the board at there's been a lot of frustrating sort of tight arm wrestles in the different games across the Premier League and the A-League. But the standout for me was the Raw's performance. My own goal ties in beautifully to this because it's the subpar commentary that we got to enjoy with that, euphoria. I can only imagine it as euphoric because I had to do just that, imagine it, because it wasn't actually that euphoric for me to listen to. So my own goal for the week, Colby, jumping ahead, is the appalling commentary for the Raw game. And I'm sure we'll cover more of that as we come up with some of the listener questions.
First of all, Jesse, this is the second week in a row where you've given us a 2-in-1 moment of the week and own goal. You're like the head and shoulders of this podcast.
I'm the Boxing Day sale.
Just hitting us with the 2-in-1.
Yeah, twofer.
And secondly, Jesse, you did mention the commentary by Fox, specifically Adam Peacock on that Jay O'Shea screamer in the Raw game. Our mate Lee Broxham Facts, wanted us to talk about this. He was saying a lot of people mention it as a bad call and saying, can you imagine if we showed everyone Martin Tyler's post 2014 post Vardy party commentary? He downplays every single goal. Jesse, talk us through your love of Martin Tyler and now Adam Peacock.
Well, Martin Tyler's an interesting one because I used to think he was fantastic back in the day, and then he's just become worse and worse and worse and worse, and now I can't stand him. We don't hear too much of him on the commentary now, whereas this game, like, there are a few things. So like when you live overseas and you listen to the Premier League and different leagues, when you get the overseas dubbed coverage, you get a lot of like high commentary, low crowd noise. And so you can tell that they're obviously commentating from overseas because of that disparity. The same thing happened here. Like, I know that they were commentating from somewhere else, which sounded like they were commentating in a room while the game was going on. So the crowd noise from the Raw game was really subdued. So they didn't feel like it had much of an atmosphere. If you turn that game over and you listen to the games that we saw tonight and how loud it was at Amy Park, it's just such a different experience. So you can't hear the crowd. That's the first problem. Secondly, the commentary is poor. Like, it doesn't have any feeling to it. It doesn't go up or down. It's just monotonous. So you get a double whammy of shitness. You get low crowd noise and the commentary is underwhelming. And what you get is some really unsatisfied watchers/listeners.
I think my favorite part about listening to that Adam Peacock and Robbie Slater pairing was Adam Peacock comes up with the weirdest like metaphors and analogies that have nothing to do with football. Like I think at one stage you said they're running around like they've all had a swig of the tomato sauce at a 5-year-old's birthday party. And Robbie Slater just blanks him every single time, just doesn't respond. And another thing that irks me about that commentary is why does Robbie Slater have to continue to say winger with the hard G every single time, but he says Jack Hingett? I just don't get it.
He needs to go to Speedy.
It's a hard G.
Needs to go to Speedy for some pronunciation advice.
Yeah, right.
And Adam Peacock, I think he might be the bizarro Zappers, because Zappers just like everything is just so exciting to him. And we had him again on comms in the Woo Melbourne victory game, which we'll talk about later on the show. It was I'm quietly enjoying him and Archie as a pairing, but we'll talk about that a bit later on.
How does Zappers get a 0-0 and Peacock gets a 3-1? The world's not fair. The world is not fair.
Damo, let's cheer us up a bit, mate. What stood out for you this week?
Mate, look, it'd be way too easy to pick the low-hanging fruit of the Blades proving that they're the original and real United. So I'll go with something different. Now my moment of the week last week, I think if listeners will remember, I went off to Africa with the witchcraft scandal. So and I know that Andy really liked that. So we'll keep it a bit magical again this week. And it's with Andy's boy Weston McKennie. I don't know if you boys saw this. He scored a goal for Juve against Bologna last week, and he celebrated with a confusing little pose stance. And the reporter asked him after the game what his celebration was all about. And he said, "I'm actually a very big Harry Potter fan. I have a tattoo on my hand, so it was a magic spell." So I don't know how long I'm going to be able to keep up this magical moment of the week trend, but we'll see.
That's good.
Oh, magic's in the air. I love it. I'm going to be. We'll jot that down, Damo, and see if you can come up with a bit of magic next week on the pod. I've got a couple of moments of the week, boys. First one is the Mac Bulls and South Sydney Rabbitohs partnership. So a couple of days ago, they announced on both of their social medias that the clubs are doing a partnership, which will basically let both sets of fans have access to various things like free tickets to games, discounted memberships. And I think between the clubs, they can like share some sponsors, they can share Russell Crowe, but most importantly, cowbells. They can share cowbells because apparently Souths have handed out bells before. There's a bell which is a bit of a symbol for South Sydney Rabbitohs. It's like a symbol of their club's history and struggles. So obvious synergies there, boys.
When will the bell end? But I was going to say, Colby, do you think this is the biggest wrestling match for fighting over Russell Crowe since Australia and New Zealand? Or does Russell just love to get himself in these these love fights between two people? I mean, who's he going to go to? Is he going to go and watch the McBulls on a Saturday and the Bunnies on a Sunday? I mean, how's he going to spend all his time?
Well, I mean, he's going to be getting a discounted membership. So, I mean, the world's his oyster, isn't it?
Rich people getting discounts. I mean, it's just business as usual, really.
But yeah, great initiative and something other A-League clubs should look into. And we were chatting about it in the group chat after this happened, and surprised that it hasn't happened with other clubs. Damo, I know you were saying that you're very surprised that the Woo and the Western Bulldogs haven't struck up this kind of a partnership.
Yeah, I mean, it makes perfect sense, right? They're two clubs that are trying to combine all the western suburbs areas of Melbourne from, Footscray all the way to Ballarat. And they've both had the same kind of business model. So, I mean, Western United played at Footscray's ground last year at Whitten Oval. So it just would make sense. But, I mean, I guess the two businesses have to come to something and obviously haven't.
Yeah, seems a missed opportunity so far, but maybe other clubs will follow in their footsteps. But my next own goal, boys, it actually goes to Mikey Mifsud and to soccer Twitter as a whole. This is to do with the Ferenc Puskás statue that lives near the MCG in Melbourne. It was defaced and subsequently cleaned up. But basically, it had been sitting there for a number of months. Someone had ripped the plaque off it and done a bunch of damage to it. And people talking about it on soccer Twitter, and Mikey Mifsud basically went to check it out, posted a photo on Twitter confirming that it was still damaged. And then soccer Twitter basically did the rest, with Daniel Garb lending his voice to a group of people who were calling for the statue to be immediately restored. And pretty much that day, the Vic Minister for Sport jumps onto Twitter and at Daniel Garb and others saying, "Oh yeah, I've spoken to the CEO of Melbourne Olympic Parks and they're going to clean it up ASAP and put the plaque back on it and do all of that other stuff." So I mean, great result. Mikey and Garby and just all of soccer Twitter for just getting around this and actually coming out with something.
Boys, even as massive football fans we are, before this all happened, could you tell me where the Ferenc Puskás statue was?
I actually did know this, but one thing I didn't know was whether there were any other Australian football legends there. I mean, whether there were Australian football legends there, because obviously the Ferenc Puskás statue was there. It was a gift from the Hungarian government a couple of years ago, and it's only one of 4 in the world, and it's obviously there to, because of his time that he spent in Australia managing South Melbourne towards the end of his managerial career, and it's massive, but not too many people know about it, Damo, for sure.
And it's tucked away in a weird little grassy patch in between the MCG and Amy Park and that little park walkway there. And it's just and it feels like you have to go looking for it to see it.
It's nominally in I think they call it the Avenue of Legends or some shit. And it's got all these great athletes, a lot, I guess mostly Aussies from all these other sports like track and field, AFL, all this other kind of stuff. And then you got poor old Puskás just shoved in the corner. And that's, I mean, there's also been a number of people sort of calling for it to be moved out to Lakeside, because obviously, it's close to where, or it's South Melbourne's grounds where Puskás managed back in the day. Would you like to see it moved back there rather than sort of alongside the other legends from the other codes near the MCG?
I mean, it makes sense, right? But I think I did read that then becomes the responsibility of whoever owns the Albert Park or Lakeside, government-wise. They have to pay for the maintenance and upkeep of the statue, and they probably don't want to do that. So why would they take on that commitment?
Yeah, I think we're Puskásking a bit too much there.
Yep.
Well, I've got you, Jesse. Own goal for this week. You've given us a 2-in-1. Do you have anything else for us?
I only do 2-in-1s now.
All right. Yeah.
I will note that. I will note though that Damo's one from last week, the witchcraft. I believe it was a moment of the weekend, an own goal. So 2-in-1's the new way to go, Colb. So you just got to get on board.
The Puskás one could have been an own goal / moment of the week as well. So I guess there's bits of everything. But Damo, what have you got for us?
My own goal this week was the whole situation with the head of the A-League, Greg O'Rourke. I mean, we'll talk about the delay in the MacArthur versus East Sydney game, but I mean, first of all, I don't understand why he had to sit down and do this live TV interview to explain what was going on. I thought that was totally unnecessary. Why couldn't he just get, Bozza or Harper to relay a statement of his? But I mean, and that only got him into more trouble. And I think Speedy asked him about the Raw and Adelaide game that's due to kick off as soon as this was meant to be finished. Is that going to be delayed? And Greg O'Rourke, I don't have the exact quote, but he said something along the lines of, "Oh, well, that's a decision up to Fox Sports." He showed no authority at all. I just felt like it was a really weird thing to do in general, and really showed his real lack of power or lack of influence that he has as the head of the A-League.
It was lethargic.
What going on?
It was lethargic, yeah. and that's what flowed into the commentary. So it had a bit of a domino effect at that point.
Speaking of the comms boys, Fox basically gets my massive own goal this week. Firstly, I guess the coverage of the W League. Obviously, there was big tech problems, and there has been big tech problems in the past couple of weeks.
I was just looking for my tuba behind me.
I promise we're not gonna cut to anyone on the YouTube video. Well, I can't promise that, but it hasn't happened yet.
So good.
If more than a game can not have someone cut in with a tuba in the background, then why can't Fox do it? But basically, if you haven't seen this for whatever reason, during the Adelaide-Melbourne victory game in the W League, the game inexplicably cut to some like webcam of some bloke sitting there, like looking at his laptop with a tuba in the background. It looks like he was working. We all assumed he was some like contractor or employee of Fox working on the broadcast. I think Twitter tracked him down in the end, but just mind-boggling that these like fails keep coming. There have been other notable ones in the W League in the past couple of weeks, and I know the government has recently tipped like 10 mil into women's sport funding. Don't know where that's gone. It certainly that doesn't seem to have gone or impacted on the Fox coverage, because in fact it's sort of at an all-time low in terms of the quality.
Oh, that 10 million's gone to pay some of the $100 billion debt that Foxtel have got themselves into.
Yeah, and I mean, like their coverage of football in general has this season, or I guess for the past couple of years, just been a real own goal. I mean, we've had like even just in recent times, this weekend we've had low quality VAR. Don't know whether there's been enough cameras. I know a friend of the pod, Joe McCarthy, on Twitter was mentioning the sort of lack of cameras and the poor quality VAR. I mean, it's been a pretty no frills coverage for the past 18 months. They've dropped all of the shows. You've got pundits doing comms. You've got current players doing sideline reporting on top of like no promo. It's just blatant disregard for the game, really.
To play the devil's advocate here, I actually kind of like the, yeah, there's limited camera angles and it looks like poor quality when they go to VAR, but I actually quite prefer that rather than the, they're drawing the lines and doing all this nonsense from 50 different camera angles and take ages and then still have a contentious decision. You have one quick look at the only camera angle available. If it's not conclusive, that it's a clear and obvious error, then you go with the on-field decision. I actually think that works far better than having all this, technology around 50 different camera angles and the stupid lines that everyone hates. For offsides, that is, anyway.
Yeah, I don't mind if it's shit quality. Like, yeah, I guess the worst problem that you were sort of alluding to there, Damo, is just like, don't use it unless it's clear and obvious. Like, I think everyone can agree, like, no matter what you think about the VAR to begin with, like, I think everyone can agree we don't want millimeter offside calls. Like, leave it with the refs and the linos, and if there's something blatantly obvious, then get VAR to check it out. But like, if not, just go with what they say on field. Like, give a bit of the power back to the on-field officials.
And rumor has it that Muradovic actually also scored during that cut over to the tuba situation. So, I mean, just when you think things couldn't get any worse.
There's talk. There has been talk for the past couple of weeks and maybe even months about an extension on the broadcast deal with Fox that was due to end this season. That might be on the table. Anthony Camerano on Facebook asks us how long does it take for another broadcast company to put in to get the A-League and its future underway. Would you like to see that, or would you like to see the A-League go alone, or would you like to see them go back with Fox for another season?
I think everyone would prefer to have a company that wants to show the A-League and that wants to promote the A-League and that is passionate to have it. But I mean, on the other hand, there's no other company that has the equipment and the production teams on hand to do it without outlaying 10, 15, 20 million dollars up front, plus then what they have to pay the A-League. So at the moment, the only viable option that I can see is to continue with Fox Sports until they can go themselves alone. But they have to slowly build that, Fox Sports don't have every game. The A-League produces one or two of their own, and then it keeps going and growing and growing. I think that's the only viable way that you can do it at the moment.
Well, the A-League was supposed to build up that capability during the FFA Cup or the FA Cup or whatever we're calling it now, but obviously
the fuck up.
It got canned for COVID reasons this season, but I think it's about to come back. So fingers crossed we can see the A-League developing their own sort of broadcast capabilities during that, like what was sort of said was going to happen. And the last thing from Fox, obviously. There was that tweet they put out. I know everyone probably saw this, but during a Serie A game during the week, Zlatan and Lukaku had a pretty high-profile bust-up on field, and Fox were tweeting about it, and they were quoting what the players were saying and used emojis in the quotes, but they used a monkey emoji to refer to Lukaku's
Oh,
quote, which was just
so bad.
unbelievable.
I actually forgot about this. I forgot about this, Colb. So I remember commenting about it at the time, and if I'd remembered it, I would have had it as my own goal as well. But yeah, it was just I couldn't actually believe what I was seeing. What actually ended up happening in the end? Does anybody know if the tweet was deleted or?
Well, I think it was a Facebook
quickly.
post, and it was deleted within about 10 minutes. But obviously, people had taken screenshots of it, so they deleted it and reposted it with just the normal hand over the mouth emoji.
Yeah, I mean, but it's just you just can't believe how that kind of shit can keep happening. I know they've got to be pretty quick on the pulse, but come on, guys, like it does. It's not that hard to get that stuff right. It's a pretty obvious one. All right. Well, before we get on to the match reviews this week, we've got another listener question or a discussion question, I guess, that we asked on Twitter, Facebook, and Reddit. And this week we sort of themed it around A-League derbies because of the Battle of the Bridge primarily, and all the build up that was going on about that. And we've asked, which do you consider the A-League's real derbies and which aren't, and why? And so I've got on the run sheet sort of a lot of the responses that we've got. We've got a lot of responses to those, which was really good. And we had a few sort of overall responses, and I'll just read a couple. I'll read them out, and we can sort of talk about them as we go. Just overall, Matt Olson on Facebook gave us a pretty comprehensive overview. He basically just gave us the answer straight away. But he says, in terms of comparisons to rivalries overseas, Sydney, in my opinion, is the one that comes closest because of the classist divide and the unique identity of both clubs. He says that Melbourne lacks that, no disrespect to City, but the geographical base makes it difficult for the derby to have the same effect. And then he goes on to talk about rivalries and other sort of headline fixtures, and he mentions Adelaide and Victory as being some rivalries rather than derbies per se.
I don't think he's ever been to a Battle of the Bridge, which gets pretty heated over there, I heard. I guess I think with the introduction of the Woo, that adds a bit more spiciness to the Melbourne situation. I can see exactly what he means about the City situation, but Sporting Casey, once they vacuum up all those fans down there, I mean, it's just going to get spicier. And I mean, you've got a three-way derby. Don't know if that's safe for work. I'm gonna have to edit that one out, but you do actually have a three-way derby in Melbourne. We do things differently here.
Yeah, maybe the A-League could go full like WWE, get Vince McMahon and have a triple threat derby in Melbourne. See how it goes. Get 6 goals and see what we can do on the MCG.
Yep, pitch that on soccer Twitter. See how it goes down. Elksy72 on Twitter had a similar point to Matt Olson, just basically saying that people don't understand that rivalries and derbies are different. Top quality derbies can fall under both, which I thought was a good point, like the F3 derby and rivalry. Both main Melbourne and Sydney derbies are also rivalries. And Stevenson on Reddit also made this point as well. And Elksy compared it to the UK, where you've got Arsenal and Spurs, which is a derby and a rivalry, whilst Arsenal West Ham is just a London derby and there's no extra hype, but it's simply just presented as a derby and everyone moves on with the fixture. And he's sort of saying that's what should happen with the A-League and the newer Sydney and Melbourne clubs. But he's saying right now they're just being pumped up too much. And Justin Davies sort of comes in and says, I think there's only one real handful of derbies and an over-reliance on these derbies over actual marketing or real choices for teams has put the A-League in the position it's in. So what 100%. Do you think about that, boys? The newer derbies sort of just being pumped up too much?
100%. Like it was cringeworthy and uncomfortable how much Speedy was blowing up that as the new derby. It was just like, for God's sake, like what makes derbies special is the fact that they're a derby and they're sprinkled into the season and they're not every week. And at the moment, you open up your television and it's every week as a derby. And it's just like, I know that sometimes we laugh and we find it funny and we think it's like, this is just A-League being the A-League, but it does get to a point where it's just like, you want games to be special. You want, the Battle of the Bridge to be the Battle of the Bridge. Like you don't want to go overkill. And I feel like we've definitely reached overkill and some.
Yeah. I mean, it's what they've used as a marketing tool, right? And that's what was it Justin? Justin said it's the A-League have found no other way to market games than to try and market them as a derby or as a rivalry or some sort of like spicy matchup that everyone doesn't like each other, because that they try and build hype by doing that when really what they should be doing is focusing on the players themselves. This player does this player does this. Come and watch these superstars, not try and make a derby out of anything.
It's basically Fox Sports has basically made the A-League into a reality TV show. It's like, you wouldn't believe what Adelaide has said about Melbourne.
Click on page 3.
This week, Melbourne versus Adelaide.
Monkey with hand over eyes emoji.
Oh, jeez. Oh.
A few more comments just on what makes a derby overall. Jem Edsel on Twitter basically says derbies needed some authenticity or point of difference. And he said he wasn't even at the Woo game. He's a Melbourne Victory fan and said he wasn't even at the Woo game. If it felt like a derby, I wouldn't have missed it. So that sort of says something about the sort of feeling of a derby as well. The vibe, I think he was sort of talking about. Luke on Facebook says derbies need to have hatred or passion and ability to pull a good crowd. And Sal Talk Soccer on Twitter says any intra-city rivalry, but it has to be organic.
Yeah, look, I think the organic point is the biggest part of, a rivalry or a big game. And I think we saw that from the first few seasons of the A-League and what they call the original rivalry now. The really spicy matchups that happened between Adelaide and Melbourne in that first, 4 or 5 seasons. All the Cozzy and Muscat drama and the red cards and everything that went on and the grand finals they played in, that was an organic build to a real rivalry that still stands today because the fans still look at those clubs and go, yeah, we don't like you for all that.
I think that the organic derby has to involve 100% Wagyu MacArthur beef. And it also, like, when I think organic, I think sort of free range as well. So I think that, yeah, if you want to go for organic, Sal, make sure that it's 100% Wagyu grass-fed.
I wouldn't have thought you wanted free range. I thought you would have wanted to be constrained to a geographical area. You need to fence that shit off and be like, here's where the derby is. You don't want that roaming free.
Absolutely. At least cage free.
I thought that there was a user on Reddit with the username placeholder, helpfully, who summed it up, who said a derby is a fixture that has some sort of geographical significance between the teams, and the winning side must have some area to claim as theirs. And he gives the example, or he or she gives the example of Melbourne Victory, Melbourne City, but Melbourne Victory versus Sydney is not a derby because there's no area to claim. And this leads us into the Battle of the Bridge. They've set out the area. So the Woo official account has started the hashtag Battle of the Bridge, which caught on social media, and then did a bunch of other shameless sort of cringy PR stunts, which all got the desired reaction from the Melbourne Victory fans. They photoshopped the Woo's abbreviation onto the Amy Park seats in the lead up. They organised a boat with like a handful of Woo fans, like going down the Yarra. They weren't referring to Victory by their name during the build-up, which was a tactic that the VUC used to do to Melbourne City. They got Max Rushton to do a video. What did you think of the build-up to the Battle of the Bridge, boys?
You know what? When I first read the original tweet from Western United, I saw it very early and I thought, oh, Battle of the Bridge. I can't believe they're trying to push this. This is really cringy. The AFL have already got a Battle of the Bridge. And I was like, what even bridge are they talking about? And then as the week continued to go on, I just liked this more and more and more. And the Woo just really lent into it. And they knew it was pissing Victory fans off. So they just kept doing it and kept doing it. And I thought it was brilliant in the end because the Woo got exactly what they wanted out of it. Victory fans, tried to start shooting them down, going, we don't even care about you anyway. It was really getting to them.
And I think the proof was in the pudding as well. And we will talk about the games shortly, listeners. But I think the proof was in the game. It was a cracking game. But Jesse, do you have something to say or thoughts on the Battle of the Bridge as a derby, first of all?
Well, I just think that it took on. I just would love to see the Western Service crew take on the Woo Are You Woo 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 from CSI Miami. Because I just feel like if you want to really trigger the Melbourne Victory fans even more, just start singing that, and I just imagine that you just get some really triggered fans. So
Maybe
you thank me.
Maybe we'll get in touch with Soccer Twitter's favorite Gerald to see if he can line that up.
Would love to hear that.
A few more of the derbies got a lot of individual love when we asked this question. The original rivalry, Melbourne Victory and Adelaide, got a lot of love for this one, and people even calling it the original derby, which I guess goes to show how people think of it.
The Dan Andrews derby.
The distance derby. Oh, yeah, the Dan Andrews derby. That's not a bad one. The distance derby got a lot of love as well. Of course, Wellington Phoenix and Perth Glory, the biggest distance between two rivals in world football, I think. Dr. Yobbo on Twitter says the distance derby is the only real derby in the A-League. Dark Troop 76 on Reddit says the distance derby is a banter fixture. And Scotty White on Facebook says the fiercest derby has to be Glory versus Phoenix, which is the distance derby, and the worst is F3. The F3 derby, few people commented on that as well. Jack McDonald on Facebook says the F3 derby is the most pure A-League derby, usually played on a shit time or day where you shouldn't have a derby, i.e. Tuesday night a couple of seasons ago.
I remember that.
It's like the Palace. It's like the Palace Brighton derby of the A-League.
Well, it's named after a highway, so I think there are a lot of similarities between those two derbies. Raw and Central Coast. Timely that should get a mention with the teams once again taking up first and second spot on the ladder. But Bay 49 Wanderers says the Raw and Central Coast's in its days, and they might be having their days again, boys. What do we think about that?
Oh, I think that was more of a Ange Postecoglou versus Graham Arnold. Different styles, different mentalities, and they were both playing brilliant football. So they were always great games to watch for. I think it was about 2 or 3 seasons there, but I wouldn't call it a derby or a rivalry. It was just, two good teams going at it.
Rest in peace, the Queensland derby with the Fury.
Oh, that's what I was about. That's what I was about to say. We've got this run sheet of derbies, and not once does it mention Brisbane versus Gold Coast or Brisbane versus North Queensland or North Queensland versus Gold Coast, which were all Queensland derbies. So come at me, Soccer Twitter.
Yeah, get at us. Where the Queensland derbies at? Where the Queensland derby fans at? In terms of derbies or fixtures that could become derbies, so future derbies. Dan Zing on Facebook says, I think Western versus Adelaide could develop into a derby, hopefully organically. Not too sure what he was getting at there, but okay.
It's a long drive. I guess Ballarat's a little bit close to Adelaide. No, not really. Is it possible to get like a derby counter in the top corner of this live broadcast? How many times have we said it? Do you reckon we could at some Derby County fans on Twitter and tell them we spoke about Derby for half an hour?
I've been trying to take a drink every time we say the word, and I'm just about dry.
Well, strap yourselves in because we've got a couple more to go. Paul Giannopoulos on Twitter says Victory becoming irrelevant now may mean that Western will become our new biggest rival. And I think he means Sydney and Western United. So I think that was just a bit of a piss take. And then to round us out, the forgotten derby, Dave Saves on Twitter says the only real derby was the Gold Coast Perth because they played for the Iron Ore Cup.
That's good. It's very good.
Surely that's out of Reddit though. That can't be a tweet.
No, that's a tweet, mate. That's Dave Saves of the Rawcast getting at us on Twitter. MTAG trivia. We were blessed. You blessed the timeline with two trivia questions this week, Damo. Firstly, your one about Andrew Durante becoming part of the illustrious group of players to have made plus 400 appearances in Australian domestic leagues. And you asked how many others and who were their names. Firstly, big shout out to Pete Nowakowski calling in Andy Howe Stato to help him. But did we get a winner with this one?
We did. It came after a while, and I'm gonna assume that this guy definitely saw the Fox Sports live broadcast about 2 minutes after I tweeted this. I'm not sure if you guys saw this. So I did all this research into how many games people have played. It probably took me about 10 minutes to figure it out. And I sent out a tweet, and then I swear, not even 2 minutes later, a little banner popped up on Fox Sports to say that Duranche was the 7th player of all time to play 400 plus games. And then 2 minutes after that, they actually popped up the list of names, the top 6 and how many games they played. So I'm going to assume that this person, credit to them if they didn't see it, but I'm going to assume that they saw that on Fox Sports and came at us with the answer.
There's an honesty system with online trivia, isn't there? You've sort of got to just rely on the good graces of people not to go to Google or be watching the Fox broadcast at the same time. And your second question, Damo, was what was the largest sum paid for an Australian domestic transfer fee, which caused a lot of confusion.
Yeah, it did. And we've got a lot of answers here that were primarily Australian clubs selling players to international clubs for big fees. And there were some good shouts in there if that was the question. I think Hernandez came up. I think he was 800,000, I think, and a whole bunch of A-League players. But I think that if that was the question, then I think Zeljko Kalac still holds the record for an Australian club sale, which was from, I think he was at Sydney United, wasn't he, to Leicester for £1.7 million. And that was in the 90s. So we've still got a long way to go in producing that kind of players. But obviously the question was domestic transfer fee, which was from one Australian club to another. We got an answer in the end. I think it actually came from Reddit originally. And then someone on Twitter came in later, and it was Ante Milicic went from Sydney United to Sydney Olympic for $110,000 in 2002, which ended up turning out to be a really good transfer because he scored 30 goals in 39 games, won the NSL Grand Final and the minor premiership. So a good deal in the end.
Good piece of business.
And crazy to think that a club that made the Australian domestic transfer fee 2 years later was playing in the New South Wales State League.
And these two usernames, Warner Chupbro and the Cinnamon Samurai, look like a couple of blokes that absolutely smashed me on online FIFA.
They look like a couple of guys that were on Wall Street bets, getting some money on GameStop this week.
Yeah. Like, I mean,
I bet that.
When you get connected on FIFA and you're out to play, if I saw that username, I'm like, I might as well just forfeit. It's over.
What a chop, bro.
I'm cooked.
You can always get around our more than a game trivia or discussion questions posted most weeks on our social media channels. You can send in your questions, comments, or hot takes to mtagpodcast@gmail.com or on any of our social media, and we link to all of those in the notes to this podcast. Up next, the Bunnings A-League Matchday 6. Boys, the Battle of the Bridge ended in 0-0, but holy shit, this was a bloody fun game. Like, just the intensity from the very word go. I was trying to tweet at the same time as watching this. I couldn't take my eyes off it. I was like half in the group chat, half tweeting, half like actually watching the game. And usually like watching the game sort of takes a back seat and I'm sort of like just chatting and like going on Twitter. But like this, I just couldn't take my eyes off this game. But just firstly, boys, 0-0, who's happy with a point?
Definitely victory. I feel like victory got away with that, especially in the second half. I mean, they probably could have been up at half time, given they had the better of the chances and the game really started slow for Wu. But that second half, the Wu really came at them. They got the disallowed goal and the Diamante shots and they looked really threatening. And victory, Grant Brebner's probably walking away with that, with a fat filter on and happy that he got a point.
Well, it's funny though, isn't it? Because with recency bias, because I think victory fans will really feel like that they could have won because they had that chance near the end. But really, that's like the final 5 minutes or so of the game. I mean, if you go before that, I mean, the second half was just Diamante basically hitting the bar. It just was so, when you see those moments and you think, okay, they could come to rue that later on. That's one thing, but it's also, you also feel robbed as an A-League fan of those goals not going in and being on the highlights reel for years to come because they were just cracking goal. They would have been cracking goals,
And the commentary to match would have been amazing because Zappers was getting erect just watching him hit the bar. I can't imagine if it had gone in.
I felt Zappa's barring up every time he said Diamante. You could hear it in his voice.
And I loved how he was really emphasizing Diamante's name because Archie was calling him Diamani or Diamani or something the whole game. So it's Zappa's Diamante with the ball.
But you're right, Jesse. Those two Diamante chances that hit the crossbar both would have been worldies. And let's not forget the celebrations as well. There was fireworks going off in the stadium. Like whoever was on that was just pushing the button straight away. And sure enough, they either hit the crossbar, the Paredes goal that was ruled out by for a millimeter offside had a bit of a premature celebration that people were likening to the Karen Bullitt false start all those years ago. Maybe it was a little bit of a smaller deal than that, but the Berisha goal, poor old Bez has to wait to relieve his A-League scoring drought. He was was there an offside in the build up to his goal?
Yeah,
so, Connor Payne. Yeah. Connor Payne.
It was unfortunate because I think Connor Payne. It was about 2 passes before the actual pass to Berisha. Which, VAR was used effectively, and that was the right decision.
Again, you feel robbed though because the build-up was so nice, and it was like I was blown up in the group chat because I was like, "This is fantastic! What a goal!" And then I was like, "Oh, here we go, go."
Just a quick point about that: we're often really quick to lament VAR and really jump on the mistakes, but that goal there is exactly as VAR was intended. It was quick. It happened within 30 seconds. They picked it up. They called it offside. They disallowed the goal and they got on with the game. And that was it. It worked effectively.
And that answers one of the listener questions that we had this week, Damo. Top fan Andrew Wallace from All Out West, the Woos podcast. So shout out to them. Asked us how many decisions did the VAR get right this weekend, and I think you've just answered that. Well, there's at least one because that one was definitely a correct decision by the VAR.
And I'm going to say that the Paredes one was a correct decision by VAR as well because, as we said earlier, the on-field decision was from the linesman there, the assistant referee, to put their flag up probably prematurely as an assistant referee. And I'm pretty sure their directive is to keep it down unless it's clearly obvious they're offside, and then we'll go back and check. But from the footage, it may have been millimeters, it may have been off, may have been on, no one really knows, but it wasn't conclusive enough to turn over the on-field decision. So, again, VAR was used effectively for that decision, I think, too. It was the assistant referee who was in the wrong there.
If we're working within the rules of the game right now, then I agree. But I do agree with this sort of sentiment that we see a lot with the Premier League and the A-League with these decisions where benefit of the doubt to the attacker, I think. I mean, I think that if you saw a consistent benefit of the doubt to the attacker, if it's like a shoulder or something like that, we'd all be okay with it. No team would be getting ripped off because it would be a consistent thing. But at the moment, it's a fingernail and you don't get the goal. So I think that's where the problem is. And it's not just A-League, it's happening in the Premier League every week as well. So we saw it with Danny Ings last night. So.
And we've talked about Zappas and Archie back on comms together. I sort of like their little duo. It's really growing on me. But one thing I wanted to point out was last week we were talking about Archie calling Amaretto in the Perth Glory game that they commentated together. And this week, Archie clarified that comment and said, I called him Amaretto because he scores some delicious goals, which was hilarious in itself. And then I found out before the pod, listener Matt Olson got in my DMs and sent me the picture. Apparently, Zappa's organised a bottle of Amaretto to be delivered to Amietto in celebration of this funny comment. And you'd love to see that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I mean, Archie came out with a few clangers this week. He had Ryan Dillon a few times, and
oh god,
and there was a few other ones in there that I probably can't think of now. But I mean, Archie comes up with clangers that are horrible, that are just going to become memes. And the thing about Archie is he leans into those, and he really takes it on the shoulder and just kind of goes, "Yeah, that's who I am."
And in addition to those guys, we had, we've had a bunch of like A-League sideline commentators, like current A-League players. Lee Broxham Facts was talking up Neil Kilkenny, saying he's stayed in Melbourne between the 22nd of Jan and the 30th so he could do the Woo game or play against the Woo and Victory, and then be the sideline commentator for the Woo versus Victory. Does he actually miss his kids back in Perth at all? In all seriousness, who would you want to be the next sideline commentator? Maybe Diamanti?
Definitely Diamante, because it'd all be in Italian. If you watch his Instagram stories, I think he speaks about half a dozen words of English.
I just felt like when I heard his commentary the other night, I thought I can't quite verify this, but I think I saw the paint on the side of my living room starting to actually, rip off and peel off, and that's actually how my face almost felt as well. I had to go moisturize afterwards immediately. It was painful to listen to at times for me, because it was like he talked too long. Like, there's an art in these sideline comments because the A-League at the moment is just such fast counterattacks. You've got to get what you're going to say in really fast, because if you don't, it's all of a sudden it's in the opposition box and he's still just going on and on. You're like, wrap it up, mate. Wrap it up. It's going to be a chance in a second.
I actually really like that Fox Sports have done this with a couple of current active players. Get them a chance to get on TV and talk, and players have got to have something to do after they finish, and gives them a little bit of exposure to that kind of world. But I think they'll probably pass on Kilkenny bringing him back. They'll probably get someone else in next time. But on the other hand, I thought Jamie McLaren was brilliant when he was on TV.
Maybe Kilkenny will be a great sideline commentator. He's been playing sidelines at Guinness for years.
Jesus.
Oh, well, the victory down in 11th now, and the Woo, meanwhile, 9th. So next up, Brisbane and Adelaide. So the late time slot of yesterday's triple header, Dylan Wenzel Hall brace and Jay O'Shea long bomb won it for the Raw. Boys, what did you make of the Raw's performance, Damo?
In short, I think the Raw are playing the best football of anyone in the league at the moment. Some of the plays that passages of play they were putting together last night were just brilliant. Playing out from the back, the interplay in midfield, a quick switch from either side. Dan Zaki looks like an absolute jet, and he's just in there nipping around everyone. And he's really changed the way the Raw go about their attack. And Wenzel Hall's just on fire. So, yeah, in short, the Raw are the form team in the competition at the moment.
Could we see the first triple barrel name, Dylan Wenzel Hall Messi? Because he was just walking on water last night and, weaving through the defense. And what about the moment when he went and celebrated with his mates in the crowd?
Yeah.
Loves the crowd celebration.
Can we coin the name the Moreton Bay Messi?
Yes.
I don't mind that. If he played deeper, we could call him the Ipswich Iniesta, but I don't mind the Moreton Bay Messi.
Yeah. Well, he actually played for Western Pride in Ipswich, so that kind of works better, but he didn't play for Moreton Bay. Unfortunately, that would have been perfect.
Oh, that's good. But yes, his stonks are definitely rising. I think, he's probably one of the form forwards of the league. It'd be between him and Alu Kual at the moment. Or
Daggers, Nick D'Agostino. I mean, which one of them, when the thick Nick, which one of them goes to the Olympics if they happen, or all of them?
I thought we were calling him Shagostino last week.
Thick Nick Shaggers.
But I mean, he's not a tall man either, and his awareness in the box and his sort of agility in the box was sort of Cahill-esque, I would say, to sort of get in there and win that header at the near post.
Yeah, well, we had another golden metaphor from Adam Peacock, who said he thinks Dylan Wenzel Halls must have been a blue healer on a sheep station in a previous life. The way he gets around the field, and Slater gave him the nothing.
And just a quick word on Adelaide before we move on, boys. What happened with them? Like they were flying last week.
Different team away from home at the moment. They just, I don't know if it's the away McDonald's kit or the home McDonald's kit. Maybe, the day shift versus the night shift. Maybe they've got two teams. One team that flips the cheeseburgers during the day and one that does it at night. But at the moment, there's a clear difference between the away performances and the home performances. And
it's tough to go to Brisbane and get points. That's always been the case. And particularly now that they've really made Dolphin Stadium very much an even tougher place to go than Suncorp ever was.
It's a tough place to get back from too, particularly that late at night.
Yeah, tough place to get to and get home from.
But it looked rocking. It looked fantastic. One team who didn't look fantastic though was Mac Bulls. Once they had Mark Milligan sent off for a straight red for a last man tackle pretty early in their game. MacArthur, of course, were hosting Sydney FC. The official bullpen were trying to call this fixture the Battle of Sydney, but the Aussie gaffer on Twitter is calling it the Smurf and Turf, which I like a lot.
That's great.
Smurf
That's really good.
Yep.
I actually think that saying that the McBulls weren't very impressive was a bit harsh on them, how they came out, how they battled through the first half, and then they actually came out at the start of the second half. They were all over Sydney FC, and it was the, I think, triple change in the end from Corica that completely changed the game. So credit to him for bringing on, I think he brought on Neuenhoff, Bom Johan and Patrick Wood in the end, who got a brace. But I thought before that, MacArthur were really turning the screws, and LA Rose, I thought he was definitely going to score at that point.
Forget Cavani. I think they're going to call Wood El Matador after his performance in the weekend. Yeah, it's great. I have to say he did a really good job of just being in the right place at the right time, didn't he? So that's great positional play. You got to give it to him.
Yeah, and I guess, like, to your point, Damo, about like Sydney's dominant performance, like you can only beat the team that's in front of you after all. But I mean, they really made tough work of it in that first half when the Mac Bulls got down to 10 men. That, you know, it was looking like MacArthur were the more likely of the teams to score. Benyat was bending balls in. And then, at after halftime, Corica just changed the game and Sydney just went up a gear and won it. But I'd hardly say this game is an indicator that Sydney are going to piss the league in or be dominant, because we haven't seen evidence of that so far. And you know, Sydney, down in fourth, they've drawn one and lost one this season already. So yeah, they look like they can still be got at. And so we'll have to see when they come up against quality opposition, or at least opposition that are fielding a full side.
Great goal from Ninkovic, by the way. It was a great goal.
Yeah, and look, you know how, like I was just mentioning, Corica made that triple sub. I think that moving forward, Bratton and Caceres are going to struggle to hold their positions in that side, because Bratton and Caceres, they look very one-dimensional. Like I've never been impressed by Caceres. I think he's hugely overrated. Bratton, he does what he does really well, but he doesn't get around the pitch very well, and everyone knows what his weaknesses are now, and he's kind of easy to exploit defensively. And I think they'll struggle to keep Neuenhoff and Bom Johan out of that midfield pairing. But I mean, they've got so many options. Look at the depth in that squad.
The two games that were on today, boys, was we started with the Mariners and Wellington in the afternoon, and I think as this was played, it was first versus last, which was really weird, or at least going into the weekend, I think it was. But yeah, it turned out to be a bit of a smash and grab in Gosford by the Knicks, which lifts them off the bottom of the table and prevents the Mariners from retaking that top spot. We had Davila opening the scoring, a nice little header by Alu Kuol. And then against the run of play, against all of our better judgments, Joshua got himself the late winner against the run of play. Deserved from Wellington, Jesse?
Oh, absolutely. I was so teary-eyed after that. No, I think the only thing that made me feel justified with this, because obviously Central Coast got robbed there, but was that we've been in the reverse position so many times. We've played another team off the park as far as possession's concerned, haven't been clinical enough, and lost the game 2-1 countless times. And the fact that we're at the bottom of the table now, even after we actually played relatively well so far, is just testament to the fact that we haven't been able to click. So this will do us a world of good, getting a last-minute winner. But also from Soterio, like I just did not expect that. You give him 10 easier chances on a plate and he'll find a way to miss it. But he did a very, very good job ghosting at the back post there. So, the Knicks looked absolutely gassed in the second half, and they didn't look like they could pull a punch. So I certainly didn't expect a goal to come from the midfield. It ended up being a through pass, I think it was from Rufer, to actually win the game.
And just a word on our boy, everyone's boy, Damo, Alu Kual. Had himself another good game, another goal. What did you make of his performance?
Look, I can't praise this guy enough. Not just for the way he plays football. I think he's been in great form, and I think I made a comment about his form last week and whether it's when he starts playing poorly, how he's going to react will be telling. But I don't know if you guys saw he did an interview with the Sydney Morning Herald yesterday where he kind of talked a little bit more about about who he is and who he wants to be as a player and as a personality in the game. And, he seems really down to earth and really humbled and really keen to, be a point of difference. And I think the quote that everyone's quoting from that interview is, "I'm not boring." That he doesn't want to jump on the microphone and tell everyone what they want to hear. And there's no point in going out there and sounding like the 1,000 people that came before him. And he said, "I'm not politically correct and I don't want to be, but that's who I am."
Any quote from him starts with KU, surely. But he also, did you see the exchange between him and Matt Simon? Matt Simon just like on his back about taking that header off him in the final minute before they got subbed. And I was like, just leave him alone, Matt. Like Matt Simon being a flog to his teammates. I mean, has the man got no limits? He was just blown up because he was at the near post and he took the sort of header that should have been for Matt Simon. But like they went and sat down and like they'd both been subbed at the same time, which more on that in a second. But why was he having such a go at him? Like he's a young player, he's a confidence player. He had a good game, he scored a goal. Like it was just, I looked at that and I was like, that's just ridiculous. Like you got to let it go, big Matt Simon. But on that substitution, I wanted to pose it to you guys. The commentators are very preoccupied about that, and they were saying that potentially was where the Mariners lost the game, subbing off the two attackers who were clearly the biggest threat to the Knicks. I mean, what did you guys think about that?
Well, yeah. Didn't they bring on? He's got the double barrel surname, Dylan Ruiz
Diaz.
Ruiz Diaz. That's it. Ruiz Diaz. Ruiz Diaz. He and I mean he was really good at the back end of last season. So I think it's kind of discrediting him, saying that taking strikers off and bringing him on is a bad move. He's a young kid who's got a point to prove, and he needed to score goals and he wanted to. So I think that's a bit of a discredit to him.
Mm.
And let's not forget the win by Wellington was against the run of play as well. Like the game was locked up when they came off, and it was looking like the Mariners, even after they went off, were the more likely to score. And in the end, the result didn't go their way. So yeah, I don't know. I guess the manager will always get a little bit of flack when the result doesn't go your way and you've made a decision like that. But on the performance, I think that the Mariners were maybe a little bit unlucky not to come away with something from this game.
Yeah, because on the other hand, if one of those chances from the Mariners goes in and it's one of the guys that gets subbed on, the manager's being praised as what a genius decision that was to bring them on.
Quick word on Melbourne City and Perth, the game that just got played out before we started recording, before we move on to the Premier League section of the pod, boys. Melbourne City 1, Perth 3. Sporting Casey had to trek over to their one of their home grounds, Amy Park, to play Perth. Daniel Steins bungled in the opener before J-Mac found himself in the right place at the right time for the equaliser. What about J-Mac, boys? Are you expecting a big season ahead for him still? I know we're all sort of expecting him to be in and about the Golden Boot race. What do you think?
That was my prediction. He's going to be the Golden Boot, and I just watched chance after chance disappear. Is this the short distance derby, by the way, while Perth is staying here and Sporting Casey was just coming up the coast? Maybe the short distance derby. But yeah, I actually think that you talk about smash and grabs. Perth finished really strong, but how the hell did they win this game 3-1, lads? It was just like City just ran out of gas, and Perth counterpunch, which to be honest is actually really impressive because Perth looked gassed in the second half as well. So I have to say credit to Perth, but where was the defending in that third goal for Perth?
Just before we move on from J-Mac, Joshua Watson wants to know, will J-Mac score another 20 plus this season, Damo?
Yeah, I think he will. I mean, he's only played 4 games this season. He's already got 2 goals and an assist. So as a return from a striker, that's that's what you would expect as a half decent return. And we all think he's playing poorly, not taking his chances, and he's got a goal every other game. So when he starts taking his chances, he's going to get more than a goal a game, I think.
And Dane Ingham gave Perth the lead just before halftime, which was confirmed by a pretty tight VAR decision before Thick Nick Daggers sealed it with his trademark header in the second half. Speedy said Perth escaped with a miracle 3 points. I think we've already pretty much put that to bed. I don't know what he's on about. I mean, they got a bit lucky in the second half. City looked like they equally could have been there with it. But how's City's season going, boys? They're 8th now. I think we're expecting them. 2 wins, 2 losses. We were expecting them to be challenging this season. Should they be worried?
I think it's too early to be worried about anything like that. They've played 4 games or 5 games, I think now. So it's way too early to start getting carried away about the season being over or not being in contention. What are they? They're only like 4 points off the top of the league or something. It's very, very early days. It's like when people start talking about Man United, getting relegated after 5 games, or Man United winning the league after 10 games.
Exactly like that. No, I think they've got a really high ceiling, City. I think that's the thing. Like, even if they play shit at the start of the season, I think that when that team clicks, it's going to be pretty hard for teams to stop them. So yeah, they're not clicking at the moment, but it's the right time to be ironing out those creases, and then later on in the season, I think we'll see them steamrolling people.
All right, well, we'll take a quick break, and then we'll be back to talk match day 20 of the Premier League.
Fellas,
G-Man.
How are we?
Hey, George. How are you, mate?
Here he is.
Hey, mate.
Good. Going on?
We're on. Oh, mate, we're just right in the middle of a pod. Shall we just get straight into the Premier League?
Kick on.
So, boys, Man United's title challenge. We've got 2 Man United results to talk about this week. Most recently, Arsenal United 0-0 and United Sheffield 2-1. Boys, Damo, let's talk us through the state of United's title challenge.
Yeah, look, I mean, we're probably going to challenge for the championships next year, so it's looking pretty good at the moment. But I mean, like I was just saying before, Man United fans tend to get carried away, and I think I saw a meme earlier this week that said, Man United fans, oh, we're going to win the league. Then they lose to Sheffield United. Oh, I can't believe you all said we're going to win the league.
Classic. Exactly what we were saying last week. And also, this is the United derby, Damo. So take home the spoils. How good's that?
Yeah, like I said, Sheffield, the original and real United.
And we've just been joined on the pod by George. George, how are you, mate?
Yeah, good, fellas. Good. Just enjoyed a bit of your A-League chat whilst I was waiting in the lobby there. So
waiting in the green room. Sorry,
waiting in the green room. So
in typical more than a game style, we just we took our sweet ass time getting through the A-League segment before we get onto the Premier League.
Yeah, no, very good, fellas, very good. In need of a haircut, but
Hey, you've got the COVID. You've got the COVID fro going there.
Yeah. It's been a while.
No, we've all been there actually. So I can relate hard to that in Melbourne. So hope you're getting through it. So I mean, I think it's safe to say that United. I think we could probably all say that United are probably not winning the league this season. I'm going to go out on a limb. They're only 3 points off the top of the league, but with form like that, if they can't beat Arsenal, and they're lucky to get away with that 0-0 draw against Arsenal, to be fair, with Noah Aubameyang, Saka, Tierney. It was a pretty rotated Arsenal team, and that they could have easily lost that game too. So, I don't know how well their title challenge is going, particularly when City are just on another planet with a game in hand too. So.
But did anyone realistically think they were going to challenge for the title? Even when they were top of the league, I just thought it was false. I just thought it was completely false. They're complete pretenders. Like, get out of town.
Yeah, well, what did I read today that Man United haven't beaten a team from the Big Six since March 2020, and they've only scored 1 goal against the Big Six in that time, and that was a 6-1 loss to Spurs. So they're getting all their points against the teams at the bottom of the league, apart from the team on the very bottom of the league.
Apart from Sheffield United, yeah. So yeah.
Exactly right. But they also have an issue with constructing, I guess, a pattern of who scores the goals. I mean, the people that are scoring the goals are opportunist moments. I mean, Pogba against Fulham, the list goes on. They usually rely on somebody, a talisman, just to pull something out of the fire. And that talisman's been Bruno. And, shock horror, a couple of weeks where Bruno has a quiet game week and they don't win. So I don't think it's a coincidence. I think they're very reliant on those big players.
Yeah.
I think he's still in John Fleck's pocket.
Well, yeah, they rely on just moments of individual brilliance as opposed to some sort of, strategic or tactical kind of game plan. So maybe that's an indictment on Solskjaer more than the players. But even though they're collecting points though, so that's what you've got to do in the league at the moment. Just bank as many points as you can, because teams are going to lose to random games. So. They'll probably make top 4 the way they're going, but I can't see them challenging for the title.
Yeah, how long are they going to persist with guys like Martial when Cavani's so effective off the bench, and others are sort of doing the business for them, or not necessarily, as the case may be. But I mean, I saw a lot of hate directed towards him after these 2 games.
Martial.
Well, have you guys seen that the clip of him against Sheffield United when there's 2 minutes left in the game and he's Sheffield United playing the ball around the back and he's just standing there with his hands on his hips while Cavani runs past him, runs back past him again, and Martial, just the sulky French winger in gloves, standing there doing not much at all.
Doesn't give a shit.
Winger. I like how he said winger. Yeah. Wasn't he supposed to be the number 9? But I think
number 9, Damo.
He's a false 9. He's a false 9. He doesn't exist.
Fraudulent. But I think here especially, like the debate between who would play if they're both fit, and they're not playing 3 games a week. I think the tide has really turned towards playing Cavani just because of his intelligent movement. He's like, and he's he's a better finisher as well. Like. He can play to his feet, or he can score a header as well. So, I think if Cavani's fit and they're not playing 3 games a week, then he should start every time.
Agreed.
And Damo, come on, give us a bit of Blades chat. Blades corner.
Tough 2 games for the Blades though. To go to Man U and then City straight after.
You've got the
floor, right, Damo?
I think you just need to follow the Twitter feed from our More Than a Game Twitter feed from the morning Sheffield United one. It was just, I was on fire all morning. The game kicked off at 7 a.m. here and I was absolutely buzzing until about midday. I think I had to have a nap. But I thought there was a really funny quote from Chris Wilder. A reporter asked him in the lead up to the Manchester City game, Manchester City are without Sergio Aguero and Kevin De Bruyne. And he said, oh, great. Easy 3 points for us then, I guess. That's it. It's confirmed. We've won.
Yeah, I love that.
But I mean,
did you want to give them any love for the Man United game before you talk about whether you think they're going to go down to the championship still or not?
No, we're still battling for the championship trophy next season.
All right, boys. Let's move on then. Spurs Liverpool. Jesse, you and I were at the pub for this game. This game turned on the early Son goal. It was ruled out by a millimetre offside. So you win some, you lose some in terms of the VAR. Salah also had one ruled out later on for a handball in the build-up. But it finished 3-1 to Liverpool. Jesse, what were your thoughts on this one?
Oh, the relief. Just to clarify for the listeners, this was 7 a.m. at the pub, so this was a strong latte and trying to find what I thought we were going to have a bricky roll. The place was closed, and Colby came in. Huge moment. Went out, got some Macca's breakfast burgers, and we were away, absolutely flying.
You couldn't be tempted with a Guinness, boys, or?
Oh, I'm always tempted with a Guinness, George.
Breakfast Guinness.
Unfortunately, I had 8 hours of work I still had to go through. I don't know if I'd about to see my laptop if I had got the Guinness on the lips. But the performance itself, I was just relieved, to be honest. Spurs just have such a negative game style, particularly against the bigger teams, and I just really wanted to see us get the first goal. That was critical. When Son went in, I thought, fuck, this is going to be really, really tough. But once we got the first goal, it always looked like we were in a much better position. So, relief at the end of that.
And so Firmino grabbed a goal. Trent got one as well before Højbjerg with a thunder bastard a few minutes later. Mayo on that. Mayo on the shot. Mayo on the pronunciation.
Mayo on the shot.
Mane then sealed it for Liverpool midway through the second half. Mourinho said after the game that this was a performance totally affected by individual mistakes. Boys, what did you think about the Spurs performance and in particular their mistakes in this game?
Well, all talk in this game before the game was about Liverpool's shoddy defence and who was playing centre back and would they hold up to the Kane and Son frontline Spurs? But it was the Spurs defence who were making all the mistakes, and Lloris as well. So yeah, it goes to show what do people actually know? What do pundits actually know?
What do we know?
What are we doing here?
We're giving our opinion on this podcast. I don't think listeners are under any illusion that what we say should be held up to any standard of punditry whatsoever.
There will be no reviewing of anyone's takes.
Purely the opinion of the hosts involved, which consists mainly of low-hanging fruit and easy takes.
Check the tapes.
And obviously with Kane's ankles blowing up as well didn't help, but I thought they were still behind it, when that actually happened. But yeah.
And so it's looking.
I was going to say I'm surprised
of Kane's ankle.
I was going to say I'm surprised that Mourinho didn't hit the better team lost.
Yeah, he tried that last time, didn't he?
He did throw his players under the bus, though, as you pointed out, Colby. So, they'll be. How do they respond now? We'll find out in the morning, I guess.
And with the Kane injury, boys, are we thinking this is more time for Bale?
No. It's washed.
Mourinho clearly does not want Bale. Like, he just has no interest in. He'll give him like a run out. Like when the game was on the line, he brought him on with 10 minutes, 5 minutes to go. I can't remember what it was, but it was an irrelevant amount of time.
I think he barely touched the ball as well.
Yeah, Gareth Bale, more like Gareth Lava. You can't touch him. The man's lava. Give the man some minutes.
Oh my goodness! And the Liverpool centre back crisis goes on and on as well. George, you mentioned it was a big talking point going into the game, but Matip got injured again. I feel like for the third, fourth, or fifth time this season.
Is that a surprise? Or yeah.
The transfer window closes midnight tonight, UK time, so overnight Australian time. It's looking highly unlikely that Liverpool are going to get in a centre back to cover. I think they've got 0 senior centre backs now. Who are we going to see play alongside Nat Phillips or someone else back there? Can they give someone else from the outfield a go? Can Allison play there?
They're trying to get Roman Seiss. I hear Colbs as a last-minute swap with our boy Origi might go to Wolves. They're going to take Seiss.
Is it James Pearce, the Liverpool Echo reporter, the one who's always in on the rumours, said that the club said it's not an option to not sign anyone on a short-term deal in this window. So I think something will get done tonight for a centre-half. But in terms of who starts in the next game, I've been reading that Henderson and Fabinho could start as a centre back pairing.
Could be Phillips,
they've played more games than anyone else, haven't they?
Yeah.
Fabinho's injury is going to knock him out for the next couple of fixtures, so it will be Phillips and Henderson, I think. Yep.
It's insane, isn't it?
Crazy how Liverpool have managed to hang in there with this sort of patched up back line for as long as they have. They're still sitting in fourth now, just above West Ham with the West Ham fixture to come up next. So
the battle for fourth.
That's a massive the battle for fourth.
Top four battle.
So and I think Tommy C will be back on the pod next week, right in time for this one. So I think,
and I'm sure he'll be on Twitter tonight talking about it.
He's been looking forward to this fixture for such a long time. So We'll have all the wash up on that next week on the pod, listeners. But before we go this week, we've got George on for a special bit of Chelsea corner. There's been a lot of Chelsea news during the week with the sacking of Frank Lampard and the appointment of Thomas Tuchel. George, first of all, what did you make of the Frank sacking?
Oh, mixed emotions. So I think to credit to Frank, he did a pretty good job last year. Like, he took the team to fourth. No Hazard, no transfers, blah blah blah. Built a bit of a team spirit and looked like the culture was improving. And then they just handed him all this cash and all these forwards, and he was a little bit out of his depth, I think. I think the sacking was a little bit premature. Like, I would have liked to see him get the season to see if he could turn it around, because it was difficult. Like, inexperienced manager, brought in all these guys, had to sort of tweak the way they were playing, and so I'll firstly say, like, it was a tough gig for someone so inexperienced, and they knew who they were hiring, so I don't think that should come as a surprise. But I will say, like, the last sort of 2 months, probably, like, the teams looked a bit lost. You couldn't really identify any pattern of play. Like, everyone was just bereft of any confidence, like, across the whole squad. So it was looking pretty dire. So I can understand why they brought someone in. Tuchel was available, experienced manager. He's known for tactics and being able to organise and aside from the PSG stuff, which was sort of a little bit out of his hands. So can understand why they made the decision. And yeah, it'll be interesting to see what he does with the squad. He's been in England for 5 days, so I'm not expecting a huge impact early on. But good luck to him. He's just got to restore Timo's confidence. He should just be in Timo's ear, whispering German confidence quotes. I don't know, but yeah, it's been a crazy week, I guess.
It's probably easy to ask and have an opinion on in hindsight. But do you think Frank was clearly given the job under the illusion it was a win-win situation for the next 2 years with the transfer ban, and then when it was lifted and he got given all this money, it was a whole bunch of pressure that he didn't expect and the club didn't expect to put on him?
Yeah, that's exactly right. Like, he they gave him the keys to, like, a Hyundai hatchback, and then when the transfer ban lifted, they just dropped a Porsche in his lap and said, and he's like, I've never driven this car before. So
now he's had to hand it back and catch a kazoo back to the back to his house.
Yeah. It was kazoo when you needed it. So yeah, the circumstances changed, and also you got to remember there was no preseason. So I think Werner and Ziyech came in July and trained with the team, but all the other guys, especially the keeper thing as well, was a bit of a disaster. So they didn't make it easy for him, and and then obviously there were some rumblings in the club that he was pushing for Declan Rice. He was annoyed about the transfer stuff as well. Some of the players were signed, without sort of they weren't the guys that he wanted to sign, kind of thing. So he was sort of, and he's a pretty proud man, and he sort of knows what he wants. So he did sort of stand up for himself a little bit internally. And I think that also worked against him, because the sacking happened pretty quickly, and after a win at the FA Cup. So, like, I think he did stand up to the board a little bit, and just in relation to transfers. And I think he basically said we can't win with what we've got right now because we're too shaky at the back. We need defensive midfield and defensive reinforcements. And I think that really pissed the club off a little bit. So he didn't help himself, but at least at the end of the day, he made it pretty clear that there was nothing that he could do to stop the rot a little bit, because he still needed a few more pieces, notwithstanding the attacking talent that they bought, and they did bring Chilwell as well for 50 million and a keeper, but it just wasn't enough. He just didn't have enough time to restore the confidence and get a pattern of play that everyone was comfortable with. So. Yeah.
So if I could just recap, George, it's Roman's fault for giving him too much money. That's all right. That's all right. I know they needed a defensive midfielder. If only the world's best defensive midfielder could be found somewhere.
Be careful what you wish for sometimes, fellas.
Yeah, that's right. You don't know what you got.
I can see why it's important to make sure that the board is accountable though here, because it's so easy just to absolutely rip Frank to pieces here, and that's what obviously most people have done. But I mean, it's like, you know, Chelsea's HR department's got a lot to answer for because they've paid a lot of money and thrown a lot of money around, and of course the boss is going to be like, I want a return for investment. And it's easy. It's just so easy just to rip the manager out of that equation and say, oh, he's the problem. But you look at the way the team is and the balance of the team and the fact that even after all of that, they've still got defensive issues. And you're like, well, maybe, mate, you should have spent some money on the defensive issues before you paid for the Ferraris up front. Yeah, they've got to be made accountable as well, I think.
I think it also shows that, like you said, everyone's been quick to take shots at Frank, but if he's not safe at Chelsea, no one is. And it really shows that it's a really poison chalice of a job to take the managerial spot at Chelsea when they're giving you that kind of money.
It's a game of Cluedo over there.
You don't want to buy a house in London. Just when you get your first contract.
It's a game of Cluedo at Stamford Bridge under the bridge with a kitchen knife.
I think we've always known
this. One thing would have been interesting was whether if fans were allowed at the games, the reaction, especially in the first few weeks to how the games were going under Frank, and then when the sacking was made and Tuchel coming in. So yeah, it's a shame that there aren't fans to gauge the response. But I think in the long run it was probably like. And I know it's only an 18-month contract and what have you, but I think it needed an experienced hand. And I don't know why they didn't hire like someone to help Frank as well, who was a bit more experienced than Jody Morris. I know maybe Frank didn't want that, or he would have felt undermined. But like, if you had someone there to at least help him a little bit, because he brought in his own team, you know, and then they things sort of snowballed after the transfer ban was lifted. And you know, he's playing Champions League. He went from coaching Derby to being in the Champions League. Like, it's too much of a step up, really, and for someone so inexperienced. So yeah, it would have been, I think, in hindsight, good to get someone there as well, someone a bit more experienced to sort of work with him.
Well, Tuchel has been appointed now, and we spoke about potential replacements for Frank last week on the pod, and we did not mention Tuchel, but he's here. Joshua Watson on Twitter asks, he's following up because he asked us about potential replacements last week, and now he wants to know, George, is Tuchel the right replacement for Frank?
Well, I think he was one of the only people available, so I don't know who else was hugely around. There was, you know, Rafa Benitez, Avram Grant was mentioned. Allegri, again, he's never coached. He's never coached in the league. And Tuchel was available. He became available, and he was willing to do it on an 18-month deal. You know, he knows a few of the players from Dortmund days, and he's German as well, so I think that helped. And you know, he's got the pedigree to kind of go up against your Klopps and your Guardiolas. So I think it's he's got a free hit for 6 months, because I don't even know where we are in the ladder now, but you know, it's going to be tough to make top four if things keep going the way they are. But I still think we're a shout. He's got Athletic on the Champions League. No one expects him to win. So I think we just want to see, you know, a pattern of play, confidence restored, you know, some exciting football, and you know, plug a few of the holes at the back as well. That would be good. But yeah, so I think he's got a free hit for a little bit. And then we'll see, because, you know, he's got a history of, you know, fighting with boards and, you know, turning on the club. So, yeah, hopefully he's learned his lesson from PSG, and he can toe the line a bit and make some changes. And because he's got the tactical nous to, as I said, compete with the top level managers. So, yeah, see how he goes.
So, in short, this time next season, we'll be talking about Tuchel losing his job.
Nagelsmann coming in to get another German.
And George, what's going to happen to the kids? Talk us through that. Billy Gilmore looks like he might be getting loaned out. What about James? What about Mason Mount, Tammy, Kurt, Happy Zuma? Where are they all going to go?
Well, he said, but he's given youth a go in the past, so I think he's still a manager that can do that. It's just, is he gonna rely on them every single week? Probably not. He's gonna mix it up a bit, I think. But I don't know. It's hard to answer with. As I said, he's been in London for like 5 days, and he basically played the guys he knew their names. So in the first game, so against Wolves, so there's a game obviously tonight, and he might tweak things, but. I think he's going to give the bigger name. He's going to. Well, I think first, but to that point, he still played Hudson-Odoi as wing back in his first game. He played Havertz as a 10, so it's not like he's not completely giving youth a go. Tammy Abraham came on as well on 4-6, so I think he's just going to mix it up a little bit and not go the whole youth every game. It was interesting to see Jorginho back in the team, and apparently he was trying to sign him for PSG, so he'll probably get more game time.
Frank might have actually done a favour because he's played so many of these young players now, and they've all got a bit of Premier League experience. So regardless of the results they've had, if he needs to bring on a Tammy, well, he's actually played quite a few league games now.
Yeah, Tammy's probably, you can't even class him as a youth sort of inexperienced because he's been around the Premier League for a few seasons now, and he had that season at Swansea and Villa in the Championship. So yeah, I think he will still keep. I mean, Billy Gilmore, if Jorginho is going to play a lot, then Billy Gilmore might not get as many games as he might have, but he hasn't played all season anyway, and he played like 4 or 5 games last year. So I don't think we could rely on Billy Gilmore. He's not going to make the difference.
Well, did he just get Jorginho on to play a bit of Sarri ball in that first game, George?
Sarri ball only worked with Eden Hazard, boys. I think that was the.
I think my favorite part of that first game was the Chelsea Twitter account really happily posting a video of a good passing move from a 0-0 draw.
Yeah.
Is it too late now to say sorry?
Yeah.
That's where we're at.
That's where we're at, boys.
I mean, he's got Sarri ball on the pitch and he's got tiny balls on the training pitch because that's what he's all about. Like having the lads train with the mini balls.
Mixing it up. He's mixing it up. I don't know how sort of tactical Frank's training sessions were. So maybe he
was using full-size balls. So I think Frank was probably using the big balls, the beach balls at training, and then the boys couldn't hit him in training. Real game.
Kepa couldn't even stop the beach balls.
He's removed all the goalkeepers, so Timo can just get his confidence back and just hit the target. So
he's got to hit the target first.
Oh well, we've got at least 5 months of Tuchel to look forward to, so we'll be covering it on the pod, and we'll of course have George back on throughout this Tuchel journey to talk us through it. But that's going to do it for us today on the pod, boys. And thanks everybody for listening and joining us on the pod. If you've enjoyed the show, we'd love it if you could give us a review on Apple Podcasts or even just a shout out. Get at us on Twitter or Facebook and get around us. That really helps us get the word out there about the pod. You can also follow us on Twitter and Facebook or subscribe to our YouTube channel where we're recording this podcast live today. And that normally comes out a day or so before the pod drops into your feed. But links for all of those will be in the show notes. Next week, match day 21 of the Premier League and A-League match week 7. Until then, enjoy the football.